it's a hurricane, it's over. Before you know it, while you're shaking, we're a dynasty in the making. We're the royalty, now we're breaking down the enemy. Move over. For the soldiers, take a swing, I can take a hit. If we die, it's fine, we live for this. It's all for this. We're gonna stand on top with our hands in the sky. Gonna raise our cup to the stadium lights for the glory. For the glory. We celebrate with the city tonight. Hear the hometown cheer, it's the ultimate high. For the glory. We do it for the glory. Yeah, we've waited for our time to come, calculated everything we've done, we've upgraded. Now you can't outrun a champion. Now you're facing what? Can you hear them? Yeah, it's all for us. You believe them? Yeah, it's serious. Hear the siren. We're victorious. I'm telling you. Can I get a hell yeah? Take a swing, I can take a hit. If we die, it's fine, we live for this. It's all for this. We're gonna stand on top with our hands in the sky. Gonna raise our cup to the stadium lights for the glory. For the glory. We celebrate with the city tonight. Hear the hometown cheer, it's the ultimate high. For the glory. We do it for the glory. You're the chaser, I'm the eraser. I ruin your record, I'm back here to break ya. I cut like a razor, so call the trophy engraver. I'm gonna get it, wait till I win it. God, I'm so glad to be in it. Can't wait to say that we did it. This is my life and I live it. Ready to give it my all when you fall back. Taking advantage of all that. Demons on average are so bad. Playing short-handed, your team scratch. Time to assess all the damages. I knew that you couldn't handle this. It takes a man to stand up to the king, and unfortunately you were bandages. We're gonna stand on top with our hands in the sky. Gonna raise our cup to the stadium lights for the glory. For the glory. We celebrate with the city tonight. Hear the hometown cheer, it's the ultimate high. For the glory. We do it for the glory. This is what we do it. This is what we live for. We on top. We number one. Hands to the sky. Never back down. Never back down. You gotta know my name. You gotta know my name.
Welcome back as we prepare for our driver swaps leading into hour number 6 of our 24 hours of SPA finale here tonight. Welcome back on behalf of the International Racing Organization. I hope you're all ready for a doozy. As you can see, as the drivers are preparing to get the swaps underway to hand their cars over to their teammates, it is wet on track. It's going to be a very interesting start to the 6th hour at Spa here. And like I said, the race is Saturday, September the 7th, and Sunday the 8th. And we'll see a checkered flag in roughly about 19 hours' time, give or take a little bit of time here. So, welcome back. I'm your host, GT45 Gaming. Let's have a little chat while we prepare for our driver swaps. Let's talk a little bit about the racetrack that we're racing on here today. The one thing that we have not done yet here today is talk a little bit about this iconic racetrack, Spa. So, we're going to do it now. It is a 4.53 mile, 7 kilometer racetrack. Now, that 4.53 miles is very important because the miles of the racetrack around definitely determine on the time penalty you will receive if you disconnect from the race or in our virtual world end up behind pit wall to repair your car. You will suffer a penalty for that, and that penalty is to redefine the gap for the amount of time that it took to fix your car. So that 4.53 miles is super important for the formula for the disconnect system. It is a 20-turn racetrack. It is left and right-hand corners, of course. It is a tarmac surface. It is a real-world circuit and one of the most famous out there, and has an elevation change of 341 feet from the highest point to the lowest point. All right. I'm just going to keep chatting a little bit here. We're just going to set up as we wait for the driver swaps to get underway here. This is a high-speed technical circuit that has hosted everything from F1 to endurance races over the years. The long 7+ kilometer long track utilizes a mountainous environment. The track is praised by many racing drivers for being one of the most challenging in the world. And of course, it's a fitting track to have our finale on here this season from the International Racing Organization as well. It's a doozy. It always provides very, very great racing, and it gives a huge field of cars. And in real life, they've put prototypes LMP1, LMP2, LMP3s together. They put the GT3 cars all together on a track, and there is like 180 to 100 of the cars on the track at the same time. So, I mean, we could only dream of having those kinds of numbers here on Gran Turismo, of course, but that would be absolutely sweet. Mr. Chris, how you doing, my man? So we're just waiting for the driver swaps to get underway here. We just went live a little bit early to break down some pre-race information that we wanted to get to in our first stint, and I feel now is a good time to cover some of that said information. So let's keep going. All right, so on the board in front of us here is 2 sets of graphics. The graphic on the left-hand side was our qualifying results after our qualifying and Super Pole qualifying rounds, of course, to determine the position of our drivers coming into the race today. So as we can see, Sector 7 Racing there, Team 2 in pole position with ORT, who's currently our race leaders here in the race, starting in behind them. That left Sector 7 Racing Team 1 in 3rd place, with Race Asylum Team 1 in 4th, and Team 2 in 5th place right behind. Loose Moose Racing in 6th place, and Race Asylum number 3 taking the first half of the grid. And then from there, this was the drivers that didn't make the Super Pole qualifying. It's Esports Race Asylum in 8th place. It's Medway Racing in MRL in P9. It's Apex AHR in P10. It is Last Minute Racing in P11. Syndicate Racing in P12. Medway Team number 2 in P13. And Leviathan Racing Crew LRC in 14th to start the race. Now, why does that matter? Well, it just matters in perspective of where the drivers are from hour to hour in the race, so we can kind of determine whether they've been moving up or down in the standings. And of course, it's always good to know where everybody started if we're just tuning in into the latter parts of our 24-hour event here. Our championship point standings here for the series as of last round is Esports Race Asylum in the lead with 329 overall points, and ORT just behind with 309 points. So that's only a 20-point separation here between the two teams. Most certainly that can change by the end of the race today here, depending on how things go at the end of the 24-hour period. Sector 7 Racing Team number 1 sitting there with 222 points. That is a big points gap, and probably potentially fighting for that final podium position here at the end of the season this season. We have Race Asylum number 2 there in 4th place with 158 points. And I don't know what the point scale is, so I'm not sure if they have enough there to potentially overtake Sector 7 Racing for that final podium position, but I know this team quite well, and I know that they're going to give it everything they've got to try and get as close as they can. If they can steal that position away, they're going to. And then the Syndicate Racing filling out the top 5 here with 113 points. So some teams have been able to make some races. We've had reserve teams step in and accumulate points for those teams, and and of course the teams that have made it and just not quite competing at the top end of the field here. So the point spread is a little dramatic here this season, but everybody's just getting their feet wet. This is some very, very difficult racing here. Oh, Miss Devious, how are we doing? It's nice to have you back in the booth. Hey, appreciate you. Well, there's going to be lots of commentary coming from the Ghost Man here over the next few hours, as we're going to be covering a good chunk of the race here today for everybody. So we'll be the host here for the next 2 hours, and then we're going to hand it off to the Jaeger, who is going to handle stint number 5, and then we're going to take back over for stint number 6, 7, and 8 here. So we'll have a nice little 6-hour run where we get to hang out and bring this amazing race to everybody as well. So we are literally just waiting for the driver swaps to happen, and we'll get that screen flipped over to everybody, and it'll be game on. Just gonna do a quick check, make sure everything's running good. Gotta have everything running good. Everything looks pretty good. I like that. So I just want to give a huge shout out to everybody involved here. 24-hour racing event takes a plethora of hands on deck to make these things happen. Not just the racers and the teams and the drivers involved, but also the staff in behind the scenes, figuring out the time gaps for disconnects, doing the live officiating, handing out any live penalties that need to be handed out, of course, moderating the streams, keeping the streaming team organized and in order, because we're a little bit upside down this final race of how the streaming is working. So first and foremost, thank you to you guys and gals at home, the viewers, for bouncing around a little bit on YouTube to hang out with us. We do appreciate that, but at some point here we will have all of these uploaded to that IRO channel, so you can watch them all in sequence if you'd like to, of course, rewatch all the great moments here at Spawn. So far in the first almost 6 hours of this race, we have definitely seen some pretty good moments, and we've seen some pretty heartbreak moments here from our favorite racers in the grid, and that's going to continue on here, I suspect, for the next few hours as we head into very, very inclement weather conditions here at Spa. I mean, that's the nature of the beast at this racetrack at this time of year, and the drivers are up to the task or they wouldn't be here. So kudos to everybody involved, but thank you to all the volunteers behind the scenes, especially. It's kind of the unspoken job of sim racing and racing in real life. The volunteers are the heart and soul of everything that happens on a racetrack in real life and in our virtual world. So thank you to the volunteers. Let's get a hashtag volunteers up in the chat. Let's do that. Let's get some or hashtag thank yous up in the chat even for all the volunteers that step in and make these things happen, because at some point in time, most of us within the sim racing community have been one of those people behind the scenes making things happen quietly. So you're out there. We know you're out there. We appreciate you. We're getting very close to driver swaps here, of course. I believe it's Kruntis is how it's pronounced, is broadcasting our third stint here, and he'll be handing those driver swaps over to us here very shortly, as it looks like we're about on par here for time. Alright, we're going to flip it, because I know we're getting close. We're going to give you guys some game audio, obviously, most important thing. There we go. You can see a team just waiting for the opportunity to release their driver out of pit lane here. And we're not on the right driver to start with, so let's get on the right driver. There we go. Let's get on the right driver. Appreciate you, Chris. Appreciate you, my guy. Thank you to all the new subscribers here on the channel today as well. Again, appreciate all the viewers and the racers for jumping around YouTube a little bit here to get the streams in today. But we'll have a little sweet spot there where you guys will just be able to hang out and not have to jump around a little bit. It'll be fantastic. We get to hang out, We had a blast in stint number 1 to open the race here today, so appreciate that. Appreciate IRO for the opportunity to open up their finale here. We always love to try and set the vibe, so to speak. So, but I mean, the racers, what a race they had, and I mean, that hasn't stopped. There's been lots of good battles throughout the first 6 hours. Drivers making mistakes, creating battles sometimes because gaps are closing, and the pace of the field is actually quite close. So I suspect this is going to be close racing for potentially the whole race, and with only having 14 cars on the grid as opposed to real life where we have 80 plus cars on the grid, that's fantastic to see. That means the teams and the drivers have been preparing and they are ready for this finale here today to lock down whatever it is they're looking to get out of today's race. So obviously everybody wants to win the race, to finale glory, a little bit of bragging rights, but at the end of the day every team is racing for something here today. So got to give a huge thank you to the travel arrangement booking agent that GT45 Gaming has here. I got to tell you what, man, we had to leave Spa. We had to get to Laguna to do 2-hour race over there to finish off another great endurance series that we're helping out here today as well. And then we had to get back on that amazing piece of machinery and get our bottom back over to France here to get ourselves, or Belgium here, sorry, to get ourselves to Spa. So, yeah, just wait till the jet lag sets in. Can I use that as an excuse? I may. There we go. So our driver swaps are underway here, and our race leaders, Team ORT in the Lexus, is heading down pit lane to start our 6th hour of racing here today. So it is game on here, and it's ORT's Neo to take the wheel and continue on here for this very, very fast, efficient team. So I don't know what the gap is currently as the drivers are coming in, but we're about to find out as they start to come out. Everything's working. Fantastic. All right, so I was definitely hanging out with Kruntis behind the scenes silently while he was doing his thing there in stint 3, and I just want to tell him that he did a fantastic job. Great job out there today, mate. Killing it in the booth. The booth is doing what the booth always does, keeping the fans as up to date as possible and entertained as possible, and the drivers are doing the rest, I tell you. So it looks like ORT Neo really, Team ORT really opened up a gap here over stint number 3, and has a pretty sizable lead here as we head out of pit lane here in stint number 4. So here we go. Race on, and change temporary exposure correction to get more visibility on screen. Maybe. I don't know what that option is. Give me a little quick walkthrough there and we'll make it happen. I usually don't touch my settings. I just usually leave them the way they are, but if that's what you guys want, that's what we'll give you, man. No problem. Alright, so it's going to be Slugsy from ERA. ERA Slugsy, sorry, coming out here for the Corvette. And 1 minute 32 second gap here between first and second place. That is a very large margin there. And thankfully it's still early race here, which means there's lots of time to make that gap up. But I guess on the other side of the coin, that means there's also lots of time to continue to open the gap up as well. Yeah, you betcha. Get some rounds, Mike. We'll see you soon. Alright, we should probably do that here shortly. Let's get our driver swaps through here. There's probably going to be a little rush of drivers coming out fairly close to each other, and then near the back end of the field, we'll sort that thing out for you guys. Perfect. Okay, I'll take care of it in about a minute here. Alright, so Kazla comes out here in the GTR in 3rd position, 34 seconds in behind ERA's Slugsy, and we got Deering now out here in 4th position for the are a Lexus team here, and 24 seconds is the gap to teammate Kaza up ahead. 2.2 seconds is what the gap is to the next driver, it says here, but we know that's not right. So we'll get through this little bull rush of drivers here, and then we'll get cruising. I'm not sure which one's next based off of, I think it's going to be 8th, but yep, I could have switched over there. My inclinations were correct there. Alright, so it's going to be Macho coming out here finally for 5th place, and then we'll go take care of that. So just bear with me here. I'm going to flip you back to the other screen real quick. While we do that, give you guys a quick little lowdown on the championship point standings here and the qualifying time. All right, that should be that. Flipping back. All right. There we go. A little bit of streamer magic there for everybody. It is a little, I'll get used to it. I'll get used to it. Alright, so it's Neo here in the lead. It's Slugsy in second place, a minute 29 behind, gaining time. Kaza 33 seconds behind, gaining a little bit of time. Deering in behind 25 seconds, so losing just a small amount of time. Then we got Macho coming out 42 seconds in behind Deering, and then it's Mazda coming out here 45 seconds in behind Macho. And some of the big hitters coming in here for some of these teams in this stint 4. We've got the rest of the guys. We got one livery still not showing up. Rats. We almost had them all this time. It just makes the rain mist look really, really weird. Alright. So Neo is closing in on, I'm not sure who it is there, but potentially Mazda, as Mazda's just kind of getting his car up to feel and getting those tires kind of up to temperature. Now, we are in very wet conditions here. Again, it says it's about 66% track moisture currently on our moisture meter here, so a significantly wet racetrack right now. And we've seen that rain set in about 20 minutes before the end of the third stint there as well. So how long the rain will last, it's hard to say, but currently right now the sky appears to be very just heavily overcast, so this rain probably going to hang out here for a little bit. Mazda out in 6th. There we go. We got the Furious 2 out here. He is a minute 22 in behind Mazda. We've got 8 seconds there between Furious and Johnny. So there we go. We got a nice little potential battles happening here in the mid-pack, and always the mid-pack. We got Welshie in 9th place, 2.7 seconds in behind Johnny. So potential three-way battle here for some positions early on in this stint between Furious, Johnny, and Welshie, and is only separated by about 10 seconds overall between the three of them. So with the wet conditions, anything can happen. Let's sit with Welshie right now. Welshie has the closest gap currently on the racetrack with the drivers that are out of pit lane and actively on track now. So again, those time gaps, just waiting for the driver swaps to kick in full force here. Best of luck, James. Go Deering. It's nap time for me. Good night, Lucas. See you in a bit, bud. And then we've got Caplero out here now as well. So 10th place team now out and released from pit lane from race officials and on the move, but immediately has lead lap traffic bearing down on them here as they come around in that Mercedes. So I believe this is going to be last minute. Is it last minute racing? I think that's the team here that we're looking at. Alright, so blue flag waving there. He's going to have to deal with that really, really early on in the race. And we've just got another one of our drivers released from race control here. Just wait for them to get through pit lane, get past that first live timing sector here, and then it will pop us right into position as we need to be here. And that blue flag, very bright there on the racetrack, as you can see. Maybe the drivers definitely have no excuses for not being aware that there's blue flag or lead lap cars coming up on in behind them. They give the track officials and stewards that are live at certain points of the racetrack that are doing the flagging, give the drivers ample time to be aware that they are soon going to need to subcede a position based off of the organization's rules. So it's always up to the lead lap car to overtake safely, but each organization has a different understanding of the blue flag and what they'd like to see for protocol on that blue flag. So I believe here it is designated blue flag zones, if I'm not mistaken here, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to get all my information straight. I've been a little scatterbrained today. And I believe here there's 3 or 4 different zones for those drivers that are blue flag cars that are supposed to immediately pull out the racing line and give up in a blue flag situation. If you're through one of the technical sectors outside of that blue flag zone determined by race officials pre-race, if you do it safely, it's all fine and dandy, but it's definitely recommended that ideally you wait until that blue flag zone to give up the position. So we've got Simon coming out there. You can see him just letting some lead lap traffic through there as he is finally released for, I believe it's the ERA team? I believe that's the ERA team, or one of the ERA teams. I'm not 100% on that. Delivery, because deliveries aren't showing up. And we got JP out here in 13th position, and oh boy, we've got a pit stop here from Capolero. So this is looking like a predetermined pit stop here, to be honest to me. I think this is scheduled. I do believe this is a scheduled stop. I need to wake up in 4 hours. But you have to watch. I know, it's so hard not to turn away once you got it going, right? Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out, they took tires there as I was reading the chat, I can tell that, and yeah, okay. So a very early pit stop coming in from our 10th place driver here, trying to gain an advantage perhaps with an undercut strategy here, changing their tires very quickly. I'm not going to say what tires these drivers are on, that's why the information is hidden, so we don't need to know. I can see, I know. I feel you, brother. I do the same thing all the time. Even as a broadcaster, we should be resting in between our stints, but I can't help but sit there and watch the stint that I'm not broadcasting because I don't like to not know what's going on when I take back over. So, yeah, I'll be up this whole 24-hour event. So it's Slugsy here, 1 minute 25. Slowly but surely, chiseling away at that massive gap that Team ORT and the Lexus has built here over the first 6 hours of this race. We've got Kaza here in the 3rd position, and the gap is 30 seconds to Slugsy, and it's 29 seconds to Deering in behind, and we're starting to see drivers coming in to make tire swaps here now as the track appears to be drying up already very, very quickly here. A little bit wet still on the outside there, as you see Deering almost getting it a little bit wrong there, but he gathers it up and continues on around the racetrack. We got Macho coming in 5th place. We got Madsta coming around. He's in 6th place here, and definitely some lag coming from Madsta. We've got Furious 2 here in 7th. We've got Welshie in 8th. We've got Johnny coming out of pit lane here in 9th. That'll be enough for him to stay ahead of Capolero, but that should put Capolero within a minute gap, I think, of Johnny once he gets up to race pace. So I'm not sure what that gap was. We've got HR James here in the Corvette. Hey, delivery showing up this time, right on. 15 seconds in behind Capolero, and currently purple in this session anyways. But we'll be seeing that number changing a fair bit here over the next half hour or so. We got Distinct Simmons here in 12th place. I believe this is the Race Asylum team. We just don't have their livery showing up this time. We've got JP coming in for a tire swap here, and Kaizen in for LRC here as well in 14th. So just waiting to be released there, I believe, after the disconnect in the last stint. How's it going, Cars? How you doing? Yep. It's no different for the racers. I totally get it. We were reserved for AHR for round 6 and 7, and we got our first little taste and dose of it ourselves. And yeah, you can't, even though you should be resting because you're driving in a couple hours, you can't. You're resting, but you're not resting. All right, so Slugsy here in 2nd place. Kaz is coming into pit lane. Deering is just entering pit lane. Macho is still not seeing here. We got 2 liveries not showing up. That's not bad. This is better than last time. We got Mazda here. He is rolling. There we go. There's that beautiful Sector 7 Renault livery that we knew we were missing. Love it. We got Furious 2 here coming out. We didn't have either of the McLaren liveries last time either, so... Alright, Welshie here, Team MRL. Shane starting the race for Team MRL, and Welshie now behind the wheel in the 4 stint here. So, typically, with a 6-driver format, if you've got a full 6 drivers on board with each team, you'll see those drivers do 3 stints each. Is that right? Yeah, 3 stints each. 2 stints each for 6 drivers, 3 for 4. So 2 stints is pretty hard on you. I couldn't even imagine what 3 would be, especially under some inclement weather conditions like we have here. Definitely hard on the drivers, definitely hard on the team. So in these 24-hour races, it's definitely ideal to have a full house of drivers available and ready to race, but not always that easy, unfortunately, in the sim racing world because, you know, as we state all the time, we have jobs and families and everything behind the scenes. This is more of our hobby than most of us anyways. It's a hobby as opposed to our jobs. So yeah, it's amazing to see the performance from the racers on track with, you know, limited time, in my opinion, to prepare for such an extensive race like a 24-hour race at Spa. These sim racers do a fantastic job, and it's kind of why I think that scouting in real life racing is slowly but surely starting to leach into the sim racing world as well. Maybe obviously not so much Gran Turismo 7 per se, but definitely into the bigger sims like iRacing, for example. You know, people are getting noticed over there. It's becoming an interesting transition between the two, which at some point in the next few years isn't going to really be a transition. It's just going to be one really giant family, I think, and it's going to open up doors for and opportunities for people that may not have ever gotten that opportunity because maybe they just can't afford to do what it is they really want to do, right? But what we can afford to do is pay $80 to play a video game for the next, you know, 7, 8, 9 years until the next big title from Gran Turismo comes out. And that's easy enough to do. So it's interesting. It's interesting what sim racing and what our parents, for most of us middle-aged people nowadays, like myself, I'm just in my 40s, so what our parents would say was a useless skill in life and we're never going to get anywhere with video games. Look at us now. I mean, but you know, it's not any different. It's family. We're competing on the racetrack, but in behind the scenes, you know, it's a big family. You know, everybody tries to help each other as much as they can. You know, obviously, some secrets get kept close to the vest, so to speak. But for the most part, you know, everybody's really open with transferring of information and trying to help just get everybody on the same level of competitiveness. Because at the end of the day, we just want door-to-door action all race long because it's just a lot of fun. Pardon me. Alright, so JP here, and Kaizen. So Kaizen was released about 3 minutes ago while I was just yapping about whatever. Welshie on sauce? Where's Welshie? I don't think so. 7th. No. No, I can confirm he's not on sauce. Alright, so Neo was a minute 24 over the field. We have Slugsy here with 20.8 seconds over Kaza, so Kaza's definitely closing in here. That gap was 34 seconds when they released from the driver swap, so cut 14 seconds out of the second place driver here currently. Daring is about 30 seconds in behind Kaza, which is pretty consistent with that gap where it has been over the last few laps, but if that means it's been consistent with Kaza, that also means that Daring is slowly but surely closing in on Slugsy as well. Macho's 22 seconds in behind Deering, and I can't remember what that gap was. I think it's relatively right around that time, so if anything, he's gaining a little bit of time or just giving up a little bit of time. I'm not 100% sure which it is, but not a whole lot of gain or loss there between Macho and Deering at the moment. 6th and 5th place is 55.5-second gaps, so a little bit of work to do there for Mazda in the Sector 7 Racing Renault, but got lots of clean racetrack right now. He's got nobody in front of or immediately behind him, so there's no pressure to get out of the way for a lead lap car or anything like that. He can really just try to lock in and start to get this car dialed in under the drying conditions here at Spa as we near about the 6.5 hour mark of the race now. And you can see that the track is drying when you get certain angles on the racetrack. There you can see there's a defined dry line set in there. It's not a wide line yet, but not drying as quickly as we've seen it in the previous rain showers that have hit the track so far here, the 24 hours. But the drivers have a comfortable patch of drier tarmac to drive on there, and they really just got to control how much of the outside part of the racetrack or that drying line that they're getting into right now to make sure that they have grip coming into their braking zones. We got Johnny here in 8th place, 5.6 seconds behind Welshie. So we do have a potential positional battle here in the mid-pack still. It's about 5 seconds separating 7th and 8th and 8th and 9th place from each other. And we're just kind of keeping an eye on that. But blue flag kind of getting intertwined here. That jumbles up the pack a little bit, slows the process down a little bit when you're trying to track down a driver. The Furious 2 in 9th place here in the McLaren. And I love the paint job on the car. It's very detailed when you get a good look at it. It's like a bullet through glass kind of style pattern in the black with the red there. But Furious 2 here, 6.1 seconds in behind Johnny, and then it's almost a minute, 51 seconds to Caplero, who was our first driver here to get off of the wet tire and get onto a version of the racing slicks. So 10th place driver was first one out. I guess we'll see how that relates now as far as the pit stop sequence goes and how the weather decides to cooperate with our racers here over the next couple hours. We got James in 11th place. It's a 1 minute gap to Caplero. I believe that's fairly consistent with where it's been. Oops, we got Simon here, 12.1 seconds in behind James. So Simon is starting to do Simon things here and close up that gap on the driver in front. So we'll be keeping our eye on that as well, because I do suspect, knowing the driver behind the wheel of this Corvette currently, that we may be seeing that Corvette attempting to track up the field periodically throughout this next couple hours here. We got JP in a 13th position and about a minute 15 in behind Simon right now, and I'm not sure the gap to Kaizen is. We're 8:47, 2 laps, so it's about a 2-lap gap between JP and Kaizen, and that's solely due to the disconnect from I believe it was, no, there was no disconnect from that team. Sorry, HRS the Corvette. Great race, all what a drive. Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, how's it going, Bandit? Alright, so Neo in control, and we stated in stint number 1 when we seen the ORT Lexus get out front that, you know, the rest of the field cannot let this team now build on a gap up in the lead, because history has shown that once they get to that about 20-second point especially, I've noticed, they don't really let it go. And at that point, it's extremely difficult to close in on the team's car once they get to that point. Now, they're definitely at that point and beyond. They're at a minute 34 right now. So imagine, you know, just managing a 20-second gap like it's easy peasy. They've got a minute and a half gap to manage right now. So they've even got a little bit of flexibility for a bigger moment on the racetrack. If something bigger were to happen, they may still have the time coverage currently over the field to even cover that. So ORT Lexus, our current race leaders here, looking to be in very good shape in the early running of this race. Moving down to second place, we've got ERA Slugsy here in the Corvette, and a minute 35. Now, it was closing in on the Lexus up in front, but not so much now. Seems like the gap is starting to open back up a little bit to about where it was after the driving swaps had started. We've got Kaza here in third place and behind, and Kaza, I think, has bigger problems worrying about what's happening behind him as opposed to what's happening up in front of him at the moment, but Slug at the same time also closing in on Slugsy, so it was only 12.7, so I mean, he's not closing in quickly, about 1.7 seconds over the last two and a half laps, roughly about 4 to 5 tenths a second a lap right now, and at that pace we're looking at, like, maybe at the pit stop sequence we might start seeing, if everybody keeps it nice and consistent here, that may be starting to potentially happen, so we'll keep our eye on that periodically here for a little bit. Kaza and Deering are separated by about 30 seconds currently here on the track, and I believe that's roughly fairly close to where the gap was. I think when they came out it was 24 or 28 seconds, so it's just a titch behind right now the pace of Kaza, but again, Kaza's closing in on Slugsy, so that means most likely that our fourth place team, Deering here in Race Asylum 2, I believe this? Race Asylum 1, I believe this team. It's a little bit confusing without having the actual driver's chart in front of me, I suppose. Trying to close in on Kaza. That means he is also going to be slowly but surely chipping away at that gap between himself and second place, which potentially, at that pace overall, over the longevity of this whole stint, for example, if it were to stay nice and consistent from all the drivers, potentially could also develop into a battle before we send things off to Jaeger in stint number 5. Macho, 20-second gap to Deering here. Macho, we know, is a quick driver. We've seen them. We've seen Macho as one of the drivers that was fairly consistently able to pace ORT in that Lexus in the early part of this race. So I suspect not a whole lot has probably changed in that sense. The only difference is the driver behind the wheel for Team ORT compared to Macho in this time around. The gap is 2 minutes and 36 seconds overall on the race leader, and a moment there as we head through Puan, making a smart decision there, getting off of that artificial curbing and just going into the asphalt there was probably less dangerous for him there. It's going to cost some time, and we're going to see that now, as I'm not sure who it is that's closing in on the BMW. It's our number 45 team here, and I believe that is... Come on, brain. Wait, who's in that car? Ah, Furious, right, Furious. So Furious too, not for position, but to get a lap back on that car, with that being said. So, a little bit of interesting development there. I can't remember where I was as we were going through our field. Right, we were on Macho. We got Mazda here in the Sector 7 Racing Team 1, I believe it is, Renault RS01 here, and this car performed really well at Suzuka in the rain, so I kind of expected that it would perform really well here at Spa as well, but it seems to be just not quite the same beast here at Spa in the wet as it was at Suzuka. It seems this Renault starts to come alive better in the drier conditions here at Spa than it does in the wet, and that kind of surprises me a little bit, just the nature of an MR car, but Mazda's a quick driver. We know this driver from other organizations and other racing leagues, and he is very speedy driver, so you can't count him out on being able to potentially close up that gap to Macho, but at the same time, those two drivers are very familiar with racing against each other as well, so they kind of know each other a little bit here as well. We've got Welshie here for Team MRL. He's currently sitting in 7th place. He's got a minute gap to Mazda right now, and he's got 3.2 seconds to Johnny in the GTR just in behind. So he has a little bit more to be concerned about here. He's definitely going to want to try and get around the lap traffic as quickly as possible here, as he's coming up behind 2 blue flag cars right now. And with Johnny only 3.4 seconds in behind as he's closing in on this lap traffic, he's going to want to try and start to put that lap traffic in between himself and Johnny as quickly as possible. We got a mistake made there by the Corvette, and I would imagine he's going to give that position up, and he does. And that's exactly what Welshie kind of needed right there. He needed just that little bit of, we got a car off track. Car comes sliding across the track and picks up 2 other cars here in the process as they're coming around into the entry of campus, and that is just an unfortunate incident right there on the racetrack. And oh my, that's going to be 2 drivers that are with some unexpected circumstances on the racetrack right there. One of them being Furious 2. He's got some front end damage after the contact with, I believe that was a Sector 7 Renault I seen sliding on track there. So it's Neo in the lead. We got Slugsy here. We got Kaza. We got Deering. We got Macho. Mazda is just taking a pit stop here, it appears. That's what it looks like, anywho. So let's see what that gap is now between Mazda and Welshie with the pit stop, because again, Welshie got collected up in that stricken car there as they come around Puhan there as well. So a little bit of a wounded race car here now, and the gap's very limited. Closing is what I was going to say, very quickly, and he's got it down to about 16, maybe 15 seconds here now in behind Mazda. But again, collected up in that unfortunate incident there, and a little bit of damage. It might have been Furious that we've seen. That was a stricken car there. I'm not 100% sure as I'm trying to get through the field here. We got Keplero. We got Simon here. Simon has some rear end damage there as well. We got James with some damage there, and it actually looked like that may have... Oof, we got JP with damage here. We got Kaizen has a nice clean race car here. It might have been the Furious that we've seen stricken there. Potentially that collected up into the cars there because it was in the background. I couldn't quite see the livery, so unfortunate incident there. But you know what? It is what it is. That's racing in a nutshell, and they'll get those cars. The team will make a call. They'll bring it in and fix it, or they'll just tough it out till the pit stops, and they'll continue racing. So that has what made such great battles here throughout this race. Is moments like that on the racetrack where the unexpected happens. You can't predict that. I mean, you can plan for it all day long as a racer and as a team, but things happen in the heat of a moment, and either it goes in your favor or it doesn't. In that case, a couple of the drivers, it most certainly did not go in their favor there, and it is what it is. You just keep turning the tires on the asphalt and try to make time back up. That's all you can do. It looked like he got caught up in that, or if he didn't get caught up directly into that incident, he may have been forced to check up to a point where it created him maybe to get into a spin on his own or something like that. Remember, the track is still drying, so there is definitely lots of water on the edges of the track, and when the drivers on mediums or softs, whichever racing slick they've chosen to run at this point, get into that water under braking and under battling situations or a reaction moment, it's unpredictable what the car is going to do when it gets into that situation. So it's quite possible that he just may have been reacting to the incident happening just up ahead of him and just come around the corner, either just got tail end of it or maybe had to react to it and just caused his own incident, reacting to the incident that he was trying to avoid. One or two possibilities, I believe, there. There was a few cars in close proximity with each other, so... RA2, thanks, Jakey. I always get it confused. Alright, so Neo in the lead. Not sure what the time gap is at the moment here. Minute 36. We've got Slugsy 8 seconds now, only separating Slugsy and Kaza. So Kaza is slowly but surely taking time out of Slugsy there. He's got it just under 8 seconds there for a moment. So another second and a half gain there, and I think our projection is about right there on when we could expect Kaza to close in on Slugsy if the pace continues to stay exactly as it is. Deering has 28 seconds on Kaza, which means they're closing in slightly on Kaza as well, and just as I say that, that looks like a disconnect right there. Oh boy, or is it just a mistake? No, that's a mistake. Okay. Whew, heart stopped there for a second. Alright. Deering here, I think he was just trying not to get into the wall there, so he took a very subtle trajectory to just not unsettle the car, keep it moving forward with momentum, but also try to avoid any unnecessary damage, and he did exactly that. He avoided the damage, kept the car rolling in with momentum in a forward position. They lost some time. If that was the worst he got out of that, a racer will take that all day long. That's what we like to call code brown, and it'll take a few minutes for his heart rate to drop back down to a comfortable level again, I'm sure, after that. But you know, that's just a skill and experience of some of these racers. I mean, as a viewer, you know, we might be thinking, well, why did they do that? And as for me, that looked just like a genuine disconnect moment, because that's what happens. It just looks like the car just veers off in the line it's in. So that's why I immediately assumed that. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. But that's skill of a driver right there, realizing the situation, realizing the conditions, and realizing what's going to happen in the moment if I do this with this car. And a little bit of luck and a lot of skill right there, avoiding very, very, very important extra pit stop there for that team. Mazda here in 6th place. Our live timing is all messed up. We're going to have to probably jump out and jump back in here again. But that's just the way it goes. The game has the World Finals currently running right now in Amsterdam for the Esports World Championships. So typically, I'm not surprised that we're seeing a little bit of complications in the lobbies right now. That usually when there's a big event in Gran Turismo 7 going on, the lobbies seem to have some issues step up all of a sudden. So I think that's just par for the course here today. All right, this is, you know, we've been kind of waiting for this one to start to develop here, and it's developed. I mean, the 1.6 second gap here between Johnny and Welshie, and I think we're going to just hang out here. Oh, Johnny went to go give the position to the blue flag, the lead lap BMW coming around, and oh my, just a mistake made there from, I don't even know who that was. Kaza? I think that was, no, that wasn't. Who was that? Slexy? Macho, that's it. It was the 5th place driver there that we just seen. And let's go take another look at that there. I did tag that, so hopefully we have the replay here. And just coming through the comb there, he just got a wide entry, went to get on the throttle. He caught that outside curbing, still very wet, and it just threw him into the wall there. He's very fortunate, actually, that he didn't pick up damage, because I mean, he straight left side slammed that tire wall right there and did not pick up damage. So very fortunate right there for Macho that the car didn't pick up any damage there. But unfortunate moment for Macho at the same time as the blue flag car was just giving up the position. He just went to hit the throttle, and it was just a wrong place, wrong time, and end result, a little bit of a chat there with the tire barrier. So very fortunate there not to pick up damage for sure, but very intense moment. We got Mazda here in the Renault, 2 minutes in behind Macho, but we did see an extra pit stop made there by Mazda. And I'm not sure if that was a scheduled pit stop or not, but a pit stop nonetheless, and that put him a little bit further in behind Macho at the time. So Macho definitely has a little bit of breathing space in behind him, so he doesn't need to necessarily stress about that so much, but it didn't help his charge back up towards the front of the pack, of course, having that moment on the racetrack there. All right, so Welshie was starting to feel a little bit of heat from Johnny here, and of course, when we're going to see what happened with Macho there, something happened here, and Johnny lost a couple seconds to Welshie, so maybe just a little moment in a corner, maybe got a little outside, and they had a little half slide or something. It wasn't a significant time loss, but it definitely tells me that the tires weren't cooperating for a few corners, and it cost him some time on the racetrack. So I mean, dirty tires on any racetrack typically are going to cost you 1 or 2 seconds throughout that lap, and depending where you pick up the dirty tires, it could cost you over 2 laps. So not surprised to see that, especially in drying conditions when you still have parts of the racetrack that are wet and slippery. So easy to do is get a little bit too much coolness into your tires, and then they start to lose that traction you're expecting to be underneath of the race car, and is all of a sudden not there. So 3.4 seconds, and slowly closing though as Johnny continues to track back up to the rear bumper of Welshie. So we'll continue to kind of keep our eyes on that. Oh yeah, we can definitely go check that out right now. I believe 11th place here currently right now, Distinct Sim in here in the Corvette. And a minute 56 in behind Furious here. So it was really unfortunate there for Sim, and I believe they got collected up in that incident from, I believe it was Furious spinning out and sliding across the track, collecting up a couple drivers, and then I think that accordion affected a couple drivers that were coming in from behind as well. I'm not sure if he made direct contact with those drivers, or like I said, just made avoiding action and ended up picking up some damage that way. But it was gaining on Furious at the time as well. So really unfortunate there. Now back about a minute from Furious 2 and has to continue to try and track back in. But Simon is a very efficient racer, very quick racer, so you can never count Simon out in any situation on the racetrack. He's got 23 minutes, give or take, an hour and 23 more minutes before he has to turn the car back over to the next driver to try and make some of that time back up, and that is plenty of time for a driver like Simon to just settle back into his rhythm, get back locked into the car, and just continue to put it mile after mile after mile. That's all you can do at this point in the race. You can't stress. As a racer, I know it's hard to not think about the mistake you may have just made or you made a little while ago, and then you're thinking about that battle that you could have had or that position you could have had. But an hour, call it almost 7 hours into the race of 24 hours, you can't sweat the small stuff right now. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, when the race is all said and over and you sit down and review the tape and do the debrief, maybe then you can take a look and go, yeah, okay, that definitely cost us a little bit, but during the heat of the moment, you can't let that get to you, because that's going to affect what's going to happen as you continue around the racetrack. So, I mean, it is a tough mental game in sim racing as well. I mean, it's so easy to make the mistake. We're at the mercy of internet connections and inputs and latency and lag input and stuff like that, from wheel to, say, PlayStation to TV to monitor. There's latency. Sometimes the car isn't necessarily inputting like you expect. Wheels act up randomly in this game too as well, which can cause problems. There's so many things that can happen. So yeah, I mean, I lose my train of thought all the time. Bear with me. That's what happens when we just mumble on and on and on. This stresses me out too. Nervous excitement. Nersitement. Alright, so the race leader is gaining time on Slugsy right now, and I guess that's not a little bit surprising, as Slugsy is also losing time to the third and fourth place cars here currently on the racetrack as well. So is ORT overall gaining time on for faster drivers that are down in third and fourth place? Maybe not necessarily, but definitely seems to be gaining time on the second place of Slugsy, and it's not leaps and bounds of time, but it looks like it's about a half second a lap right now currently, and Kaz is chipping away at Slugsy at about half a second a lap, give or take. So it tells me that the pace of third and fourth place currently are fairly on point with the ORT leader in that Lexus right now, which is unfortunate for our second place driver right now, because at some point, barring that, again, the drivers just remain nice and consistent like they have been, may start feeling the heat from Kaza here before he knows it. Deering lost a little tiny bit of pace on Kaza here over the last few laps, but it appears that he's starting to navigate into some traffic here as well, which may cost a little more time there to Kaza. But again, we're almost 7 hours into the race of 24 hours. These aren't the things that the drivers need to be stressing about right now. They just need to stay cool. They need to stay calm and collected. Just try to stay as locked in for as long as possible, and just navigate each situation as it happens. So Macho here in 5th place, and 15 seconds to Daring here right now. So closing in on the 4th place driver here is Macho. We've got Madsta here in 6th place, and we don't know what that gap exactly is, because that's just the way it is sometimes. But it does have 13 seconds to Welshie in behind, so Mazda potentially starting to lose time to 7th place driver here, and Johnny is starting to just slowly lose touch of the BMW and that GTR in behind there. Now that gap being 5.7 seconds. It was about 3.2 or so about 3 laps ago. Go Nero, you're the chosen one. The chosen one. Absolutely, absolutely. But it's hard, it's a mental game. That's where I was going with that. And it's no different for the racers behind the wheel. You literally be able to shake it off in the heat of the moment, let your adrenaline and your heart rate get right settled back down, and you just literally got to get immediately back into your rhythm. And it's not an easy task. It really is not an easy task, especially in these kinds of races. Just finally getting to experience it ourselves a little bit with our team. Yeah, it's intense moments. It really is. It's a different kind of racing. Ray just wants everybody to win. I mean, I get that too. I totally get that too. maybe more so her own team, just a little bit more than everybody else. But at the end of the day, she wants everybody to win. I know how it is. Nap time? What's nap time? Don't need nap time. Come on, that's silly talk. Silly talk. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Kaizen in 14th here is 12:39. 9:16. Kaizen is closing in on JP a little bit here in 14th position. About 20 seconds gained so far here since he's been released from pit lane. So making some pretty decent gains. He's got a blue flag waving at him here as the AHR driver. No, that's not the AHR. I think that's I don't know. One of the Corvettes is coming around to Simon. That's the Corvette, the one that does not deliver. Is Simon is closing in on the rear bumper here. It comes to me eventually. So 11th place, just closing in on 14th place here is what this is. This is not a battle for position. This is just a blue flag situation. But we always enjoy watching these moments. You never know what you're gonna miss. Simon is the fastest racer on the racetrack here in this session so far as well, with a 2:17.884. I believe fastest lap currently in the race without confirmation was a 2:15.19 something or 1:29 or something like that, but I don't know for sure. We'd have to get confirmation on that, but I didn't catch the end of the stint number 3 there, where the fast laps were really starting to go down a little bit, overall fast laps. So, and there we go. We see Simon get around Kaizen there. Kaizen just gives up the position. Nope, we did not. Yeah, Kaizen just gives up the position there. We did see what we seen, and in a nice, safely, timely manner. I don't even really think that cost either one of the drivers too much time there. So, good job there by Kaizen to pick the moment when to minimize the damage of having to let that car through. Neo here in the lead is just navigating around blue flag traffic here as well, I'm assuming, and it is, I believe that was a BMW. We just seen him go by here. Can't quite tell because the camera guy's not giving me quite the right shot. It might be MRL Welshie that he just went by there, I think. And the exposure is all the way up. Alright, so Macho is just nibbling away at Deering a little bit here. 11.2 seconds is that gap. I was just looking at the chat. I apologize for the little pause there. Catching my breath. We got lots of talking to do today still. So we got another blue flag situation happening here. So that's why we see the one car pull over and move a little extra slow, just to allow the other two drivers by. And with cars all mixed up in position right now, this is interesting. So we got Mazda in behind Deering. So Mazda's the blue flag car here. So Deering is essentially in position here right now where he should be. But Mazda clearly on pace with Deering. Now, Mazda can stay ahead of Deering if Mazda chooses to, if Mazda can hold pace. Clearly show that he can hold pace for the stint ahead of Deering. If not, it is the responsibility of the car a lap down or multiple laps down at that point. If you're multiple laps down, you just get the position up. But if you're just a lap down, you do have the right to try and get your lap back, but you got to be able to actually maintain that pace and, of course, do it safely. Getting back around the lead lap car to get your lap back, and it's a risk versus reward. 9 times out of 10, the drivers are going to choose the safe route as opposed to taking the risk. So we got Macho in 5th place. He's got 9.2 seconds to Deering, closing in, and then Mazda's 2:09 in behind Macho. So not really gaining on Macho at all right now, but Mazda's kind of in a little bit of traffic at the same time at the moment. We got Welshie here in 7th place, 12.6 seconds in behind Mazda. So Welshie is closing in on the Renault here from Sector 7 a little bit. And Johnny's also closing back in on Welshie ever so slowly here as well, back down to under 5 seconds here now at 4.3 seconds as we head around La Source on the 19th time around this stint. Ooh, we like to hear comebacks. Comebacks sound fun. We got Caballero here in ninth position, almost 6 minutes behind the race leader here, so almost 3 laps now. But SPA is a big racetrack; it's a long time around. As we can see, about 2 minutes and 15 to 2 minutes and 20 seconds around, depending on weather and the tire that the drivers are choosing, and of course the driver behind the wheel sometimes. Furious here in the 10th position; he's got 21 seconds in behind Caballero. And a minute 43 ahead of Simmons, so I believe that Simmons is starting to close back in on Furious a little bit here. He's got 51 seconds to HRS James here in 12th position, and James has about 35 seconds to JP, and the gap's staying pretty consistent between JP and Kaizen at the moment as well. Not too much has really changed there. We got Macho with the fastest current lap in the session at a 2:17.4 as well. But his team ORT here in the Lexus, and I mean, they are so strong when they are in the lead of the race. They become comfortable, maybe that's where these drivers like to be in the race, is they like to control the pace of the race. But at the end of the day, they seem very comfortable in being in the lead and taking on the task of controlling race pace. And when they finally get into that position, it just really seems that they start to excel, and it gets very difficult for the field in behind to close them back in, and we're starting to see that here again in our finale as well. So again, with only 20 points separating ERA and ORT in the standings here coming into the final round, this matters right now for sure, 100% of the way. So ORT doing what ORT needs to do, but Esports Race Asylum definitely got a little bit of work to do right now to do what they need to do to make sure that they hold on to that top spot here at the end of our Endurance 2024 season. So the championship is most certainly up for grabs here between these two teams, and we got a lot of race left to decide it yet. We got Slugsy here in second place, and boy, that gap is just shrinking to Kaza in behind. I mean, Kaza has just been in seek and destroy mode here for the last 40 minutes of this race, and has just continues to peel down that 34-second gap that they started with here today. So Kaza is ripping up this racetrack right now, trying to get another position here, and I mean, maybe another half a dozen laps here, and we could very well see a potential opportunity to get around Slugsy and move himself up into second place. So hard to say. It's going to be right around that pit stop time, but we got fairly clear skies right now. We can see the stars out up ahead, so weather so far holding here in the evening part of the race. How's it looking at the back? Well, let's go take a look. Alright, Kaizen here in 14th place. Overall, 3.5 laps in behind the race leader here right now. Not too bad. Very difficult racetrack, and I know for a fact that there was at least one moment where they've had to fix damage in this race and make an extra pit stop, so that's an immediate minute loss right there, which is just heartbreaking. But that's just the way it is at SPA, unfortunately. And when you get it wrong, you got to pay a price, I suppose, right? The price is pit time. And that's always a huge price to pay on a racetrack, unfortunately. So Neo in the lead. We're going backwards, not forwards. Wrong button again. Alright, we got JP here in 13th, and JP has about a 3-minute advantage over Kaizen right now, so a little over a lap and a quarter advantage over 14th place driver. It can definitely be made up. You can see a signal light on there from JP, probably signaling a lead lap car to go around on that side of the race car. I just forgot to turn it off. We got HRS James here in 12th place. He's got 42 seconds to the good on JP in 13th, and he's about 50 seconds in behind Simon right now in the Corvette up ahead. So no man's land, unfortunately, here for some of our drivers, but it's not the worst place to be in the early parts of a race like this. You can just sit in clean air, and you really just essentially try to put in qualifying laps all stint long if you can, and hopefully with any luck you close up the gap and not lose any more of that time. You are getting back in there. You betcha. You betcha. Collected up, I believe in an incident a little bit earlier on here, about 20 or 25 minutes ago, and had to come in for an unscheduled pit stop for damage due to that. But since then, again, starting to track back up the racetrack. So it was 2 minutes to 2:02, I believe it was, to Furious 2 at that point in the race, 20 or 25 minutes ago, and has now closed that gap back up to 1:39. So taking pretty good chunks out of the Furious 2 right now on the racetrack here, and we're not halfway through the stint yet. So he's got a fair amount of time still to work with here to continue to just try and close gap. Furious 2 here, not stressing out too much right now, I'm sure, about the car in behind, as again, 1:38 is still a lot of time to make up, and he's got a bigger goal at hand in a sense here, from 10th to 9th place, with a 24-second gap between him and Keplero. So I think he's probably more focused on that smaller gap right now between him and 9th place than he is necessarily between himself and 11th place. But definitely don't want to forget that Simon is back there either at the same time, because anyone who knows the driver knows that at some point he could be knocking on your door. So don't lose track of Distinct Simon. Keplero here, again, just trying to manage that gap between him and Furious 2 here, 25 seconds, and trying to close in on 8th place, obviously up ahead of him as well, which has got 47 seconds. He is closing in slowly but surely. We actually just got Welshie coming in for a pit stop here, scheduled pit stop potentially, but the car did have some damage on it as well, and the damage just could be making the car too hard to drive at this point, and it's just a call to come in a little bit maybe earlier than designated to sort that out. I'm not 100% sure, but could be a scheduled stop, could be a, yeah, you know what, we need to come in a couple laps early, guys, it's just costing us too much type thing. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out here, but we'll jump on board with Welshie here as he jumps into pit lane there. He's going to take a fresh set of dancing shoes here underneath that BMW. Going to get some fuel in that car, and I would assume that they are going to attend to that front nose clip as well and fix that front splitter. So maybe a little bit earlier of a pit stop than he probably wanted to do, but it's coming close. The car is losing time. Let's just get it fixed. Let's get it on track, and hopefully we can make that time up in the next stint type deal. As Keplero comes around here, he is going to almost jump Welshie, it looked like there, as Welshie should be coming up pit lane here right now. I believe he just came out ahead, actually. So 3 seconds is that gap. So, ooh, there we go. We got potential battle happening here between the Mercedes and the BMW here. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Keplero out on much older tires than Welshie is. Welshie has just come fresh out of a fresh stock of rubber from the rack there. So once those tires get up to temperature, we would suspect that we're going to see the BMW start to pull away from the Mercedes, and at some point the Mercedes is probably going to make a pit stop, but when that point is, we're not really sure yet. Moving up through the field here, get back to Johnny here real quick. We got our race leader coming into pit lane, 48% fuel still in the tank there as well, but again, no pressure right now for the ORT Lexus. They're chilling and just kind of controlling how this race is going down right now. Johnny's 23 seconds in behind Mazda, and I can't remember what that gap was. I think it was like 13 seconds a little while ago, so I think he had given some time up there to Mazda potentially. Maybe a mistake on track. Mazda to Macho, we're not 100% sure what that gap is at the moment, but looks like a half-second penalty there for Mazda as he is lurching upon, I believe, Race Asylum 2 here in the Lexus. Which would make Mazda the blue flag car technically in this situation here as well. So Deering having to deal with blue flags probably waving at his screen as well. I can't remember if you'd lead lap car if you have to see that too or not, but Mazda's definitely seeing blue flags waving at his screen right now as he closes in on Deering. So this is one of those things again too. If you're a driver that gets distracted easily and you got these blue flags waving in your screen, you know they're going to eventually distract you. I mean, really, you just gotta, if you don't have the pace to pass that driver, just slowly back off just a tiny little bit here, a tiny little bit there, just to get those flags out of your screen, and then just, you know, sit at that 1.5 second gap that I believe it is that the blue flags start waving. You're not losing anything at that point, but if you're fine with it, I mean, obviously trying to stay in the slipstream of the faster driver is key, because that's going to help you get around the track faster as well. So again, comfort thing maybe for some drivers, and early enough on in the race where being calm and patient is probably most important than any. Neo was slow today. Well, that's good for the field then, isn't it? That's good for the field today. Macho 2.4 seconds in behind Deering there, and Mazda was just giving the position to Macho there. I'm not sure what happened there. We didn't quite catch that, but you would think this is a battle for position, because it is technically 5th and 6th place in order, actually, as they stand in the grid behind each other. But that is not the case, because I do believe that Mazda is a full lap down on Macho there as well. So, oh, and we got GTR coming out here from Race Asylum 1, I believe it is. Just coming out of pit lane just in behind these two here as well. So it's a big jumbled mess of out of position cars kind of in position. Ironic. That doesn't happen too often. You usually get the 5th and 6th place car in behind each other, but the one behind the positional car that you would essentially be trying to race for is a full lap ahead of you still. So I mean, it's a battle worth having, because that gets you back on the lead lap with that car. But I guess the bigger question is, does Mazda have the pace to make the job, get the job done and stay ahead of Macho in P4 here? And I mean, Macho's got 2.2 seconds to Deering, and the last thing Macho probably wants is Mazda's poking his nose in there right now too. So I would assume that Macho is probably making sure that he has just enough pace that Mazda can't try to get the lap back. I'm not saying that he would, but situations, this is the things that go through drivers' heads while they're in behind the wheel of the race cars. These are the things that their race engineers or their crew chief is you know, relaying to them over the team radios into these cars. You know, that's the thought process of things that are happening on the racetrack, or potential thought process. Is not necessarily the case, because I don't know the driver and what they're thinking, but you know, those are some of the plausibilities for sure that's going on through the minds of the geniuses in behind the mics, I guess. So we're going to stick with Macho here, but let's get onto the bonnet here a little bit as he tries to close in on the rear bumper of Deering here. And while Deering's going to make this pretty simple, he's going to be like, I'm just going to jump into pit lane here. And, you know, if this battle starts on this lap, it's just going to cost us time. Maybe a good call there from Deering to go ahead and pop into pit lane there and just avoid track time loss due to battling. Hopefully comes out in clean air, and that pays dividends for him potentially, right? But definitely a racing call made there from Deering, I think, and potentially the team in behind the scenes just not to even deal with that battle. It's been very clear that Kaz is quicker and eventually was going to force or try to force the position, and maybe by the end of that lap it could have potentially happened maybe. So call came in, box, and just get out of the situation before the situation happens. So Kaza up into 4th place here now, as Macho is up into 3rd place. Still Slugsy in 2nd place. Somehow, some way, he's managed to hold on to that. 42 seconds up the road. But again, we have had drivers making pit stops, so there are some drivers, quote unquote, out of sequence. Deering here is going to come out. He is going to stay in 5th place after that pit stop, staying ahead of Mazda, and still fairly comfortably too as well, by the looks of it, about 2 minutes or so. Well, she's a minute in behind Mazda. I'm not sure. Mazda had I'm not sure whoever is in the GTR for the ERA or the the RA racing team. I'm struggling today, Chad. Bear with me. We will get it together before the end of this race. Welshie here in 7th place. We got Johnny in 8th position, getting out of pit lane here right now in that GTR as well. Got Furious in the McLaren in 9th place currently, 51 seconds from Johnny Waffle, and maybe start to pay attention to that timing gap between himself and Keplero most likely. Now down to 18 seconds. Got a blue flag waving at him here, as well as one of the lead lap cars is closing in. Keplero just continues to bring that Mercedes around corner by corner, and hopefully continues to close down that gap a little bit. I mean, it is very small gains right now. It's thousands of seconds right now that he's gaining on Furious from corner to corner, but over the long run, those thousands start to add up. Simon, a minute 10 in behind Keplero. It was a minute 39 last time we really took a hard look. So he's closing another 29 seconds on the McLaren driver up ahead of him here currently. So Simon is flying right now, and I believe Simon's actually coming up behind the Race Asylum 2 Lexus right now. So we're going to hang out here for a second. I'm just keeping my eye on the track radar. We do have two cars extremely close together there. I do need to go find where those two are. Simon's not really close enough to try and get a lap back from the Race Asylum Lexus here at the moment, so we'll keep going through here. Johnny's 15 seconds in behind Welshie after that pit stop, gained a little bit of time with the undercut. Furious is losing just a small amount of time, I think, or gaining time to Johnny, but losing time to Keplero as well. So as the cars have kind of strapped in some fresh rubber here, they're starting to pick up the pace a little bit again, except for this guy. I mean, this guy Simon has just been absolutely sending it since that unnecessary or unneeded, unscheduled pit stop, whatever you want to call it. With that bigger incident that happened here earlier on in the stint, with a car just under semi-wet conditions just kind of lost control and slid across the track, and wrong place, wrong time, you know. But he's not taking any prisoners. He's not taking any prisoners. You're Canadian now. Rated number 2 driver in the U.S.? Yeah, no, for sure. Anybody who knows who Simon is knows that he's an alien. We all know that. And a lot of race left to work with. So obviously he won't be driving the remaining 17 hours of the race, but we're definitely going to be seeing a fair amount of him, I'm sure, in the latter parts of this race as well. With that being said, so, but you know. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. You could be the fastest driver in the world, essentially, and you know, you make a mistake, and that's all it takes to not make the race go the way you want it at the same time. So there's a lot of race left. All right, Kaizen, 12:39. Where's JP? He's at 9:35. Kaizen is slowly closing the gap on JP again. So these two are kind of giving a little, taking a little with each other here, it seems like, in this stint. So the LRC McLaren is starting to slowly pick up the pace a little bit on its opponent up ahead of JP. So it's and that's who's in the other Race Asylum GTR. There it is. I'm not used to saying JP in the series. I definitely know who JP is. He's the mastermind behind the beautiful paint designs here on these Race Asylum cars. So the man is a legend in his own right. But yeah, just not used to seeing him in the Endurance series here. So. But it is Neo here, 217.3 right now, and keeping on mind that obviously not the fastest lap of not the overall fastest lap of the race, but that overall fastest lap of the race was done on the softest compounded tire as well. So some of these drivers may not be opting to even use that compounded tire throughout their stints, which means they may not even come close to that 215.1. And if they do, well, that makes them a super alien, I guess. But Home is home, Leo. Macho in 3rd place here. Kaza. Oh, battle time. All right, there we go. We knew it was going to happen here eventually with one of these groups of cars, and it is going to happen for 3rd place here. So, Macho versus Kaza, and game on. Nope, no game. Again, another team making the call. You know what? Just yeah, nope. Don't take the battle. Come into pit. Let's just not cost ourselves the time. So Kaza is just getting freebies here right now. Pays to be quick sometimes, I guess, hey? But Kaza now picking up another one here for free as the driver jumps into pit lane as he just closes into the point where he's got to start to assess when and how he's going to try and make a pass on that driver. So a couple of sigh of reliefs here for Kaz in the middle part of the stint here as he continues his push back towards Slugsy 37 seconds up the road. So Macho coming into pit lane, that should potentially give Deering 4th place back as he comes around, and he's still got Simon hot on the chase here in behind now. And I guess Simon needs to determine if he's just got sheer overall pace on that Lexus up in front and needs to get around him, or if he should just sit in behind and continue to pace Deering around the racetrack. I'm not sure what's going through the mind of Simon right now, but whispering, "Go Portugal." Shouts, "Go Race Asylum." It sounded like he was whispering, "Go Portugal." I don't know. That's just what it sounded like to me. Maybe I just, that's just what it sounds like. Alright, we're going to stick with this here for a second. I mean, 2.4 seconds is the gap between Deering and Macho. This is a positional battle for 4th place here. And well, we haven't seen many good positional battles here so far in this stint yet, so they're starting to kind of heat up in the middle part of the stint as we have just surpassed hour 7. We're actually 7 hours and 20 minutes into the race almost at this point now. And Deering feeling a little bit of pressure here from Macho. We got Slugsy heading into pit lane there now. And 45 seconds is the gap actually between Slugsy and Deering here as well now. So the bigger question is this a battle for 4th place or potentially 3rd place, depending when these drivers come across La Source to where towards the pit exit. Now obviously pit exit comes out on the top of the Camel Straight, so he's got a little ways around the racetrack to go yet, but the pit delta is, I think, a pretty solid 45 seconds if you're just taking a very minimal stop. And these drivers are taking on fuel and whatnot as well, so he's going to be in there for about a minute. And if my math is correct there, that should most certainly cost him a couple of positions here in as he's continuing that pit stop, but we'll have to wait and see here. Kaza does move up into 2nd place. That doesn't surprise me here. The big question is does Deering make up the difference here? Minute 19 now is the gap, so I'm going to say no on that. Live timing is messing with me. That's okay. Alright, so we're not going to see Deering grab the position from Slugsy. The gap is about a minute. Simon is closing in there as well. So again, the bigger question I have is, does Simon try to make his way around Deering? Now Simon has a bigger problem starting to develop in behind him here as well, as he's got Macho starting to close in on these two here as well, 2 seconds in behind. Simon's going to start seeing the blue flags. Simon's now either got to give the position up to Macho right now or decide, yeah, I've got pace on Deering and I just need to make something happen here. So hard to say. Depends what the plan from the team is. No, I don't think we're supposed to have the driver names over the cars. It muddles up the visual. Yeah, it gets a little confusing even having the live timing in front of us, actually. But this is a battle for position. The Corvette is a lap down car in between these two, but has extremely good pace with the driver behind the wheel of the car. So it's just one of those situations where you have two lead lap cars racing a blue flag car that has really good pace. Simmons is a smart racer, though. I do suspect that he's just going to give the position up here in a safe manner and allow the actual battle between Macho and Deering potentially develop. But we'll have to wait and see what happens here. I believe, yep, you can see him there signaling for Macho to go around there. And again, it's so early in the race, there's really no need for Simmons to forcefully try to get that lap back on the car ahead. Let Macho go by, let these two fight it out. Maybe if something goes wrong, you pick both positions up. You don't have to do anything but just make smart racing decisions. And making the smart racing decision based on live situations is a big part of racing for the racers as well. The team can tell you all they want what to do on the radio, but the team is not controlling the car, the racer is. So at the end of the day, the racer still has ultimate control of that car on the racetrack, and racers will make decisions that override team decisions all the time on the racetrack, and sometimes it's just to be the smarter call. Why, and in this case, it's why fight this fight right now? Why get involved in this positional battle up front right now? I'm just going to continue to put in good solid lap times to continue to close the gap on the driver that I'm chasing, which is, I believe, Furious 2 still. It's Keplero, sorry. So a minute 11. So Simon is not really closing in on Keplero, nowhere near at the pace that we've seen him closing in, but again, it's because he's choosing to sit behind the lead lap cars instead of trying to get around the lead lap cars. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place essentially right now in that sense, but has done an amazing job to close almost a minute off of that gap from the time that the Simon has come out from the driver swaps to the 10th place driver at the same time. So doing an incredible job at putting in the work to try and get the team closed back up essentially. Alright, so it is Neo here in the race lead. This is our overall race leader, 1 minute and 50 seconds ahead of Kaza. And at this point here now, our race leaders are almost lapping the field. So basically everybody's going to be a lap down here pretty soon to the race leader if the pace of the race continues at the pace it's at. This is a very consistent pace here. It's a very 217, 217, 217, 217. I mean, you just don't see a ton of mistakes from these guys. We see a couple of really slow laps on lap 23 and 24 here, but he may have been navigating some lap traffic at that point in time and had to be patient through a couple technical sectors before he could get around, which is definitely going to cost time on his current pace. But I don't think it was a mistake on racetrack that would cost him the time there. I think it's just navigating traffic, but really just shaking down second place here at this point now. Slugsy is still on the lead lap, and Deering is not. So first, second, and third place are our only three cars currently on the lead lap, and Slugsy is at risk of going down the lap to the ORT Lexus in potentially a few laps time here, so we'll have to wait to see how all that plays out. But with that being said, Slugsy is on a purple sector here as he comes into Lacombe on the 32nd lap of the stint. So again, it gets difficult when you have blue flag traffic mixed with lead lap traffic, and the pace of the traffic is fairly similar. It comes down to making those decisions behind the wheel of the race car, like we've seen Simon do just a few minutes ago. So oh, 100% Stig, 100% agree with you fully. Oh no, I never think it's rude at all, McNaughty. You are most certainly good, my friend. I'm just thinking about what the league would like to see for the broadcast is all. That's all. Kaza here, minute 51 down. Kaza has 14 seconds over Slugsy, so we knew that was going to happen. I mean, we ultimately knew that that was eventually going to happen. Kaza was just constantly closing in Slugsy. Slugsy finally lost that position officially overall to Kaza, and now has 14 seconds. So I think the bigger issue for Slugsy here now is it seems like he's just slightly off pace of some of the drivers in the field currently on the racetrack that are in positions behind him, and Macho now is trying to do the same thing, much of what Kaza spent the first 2/3 of the stint doing, and grabbing that position on Slugsy. So now I think we're seeing much of the same thing there, and Mazda got it a little bit wrong coming around the chicane there. Gathered it back up, and he's going to keep that Renault moving forward, so that was a great save there from Mazda in the background as well. Our 6th place driver, a lap down to Slugsy. It gets very confusing. I'll do my absolute best to keep everything as fluent as I can so you guys know who's where. We got 2:16.8 coming in from Macho, our current fastest lap of the session, now belonging to the BMW driver here, and a Lexus and a Corvette trailing in behind there of Deering and I believe that's Simon. So 1.7 seconds separating Macho and Deering here. Deering is starting to put in some work, and that Lexus starting to close the gap up to the BMW in front here, and we may have a juicy battle developing. We love to see it. Mazda's just chilling in behind there, or not Mazda, Simon, pardon me, is just chilling in behind these two right now, just pacing at their pace. Probably saving a little fuel. I mean, obviously that's a smart call. You're in a car that definitely likes to gobble up the fuel as well in that Corvette. So probably sitting there saving some fuel in behind the toe of those drivers as well. And that should also relate to some time gained on track, you would think as well. When you use your pit strategy, if you have to take less fuel than anticipated, that means less time in pit lane, means time gained on track essentially. So I think there's multiple strategies at play right now with Simmons' game. Again, just a very smart racer. We're sticking with this battle here, though. I mean, 2 seconds. It was down to 1.7 there for a minute, but it looks like Macho has kind of fallen back into the groove here. We got some very mild clouds, partially cloudy, rolling through the track here right now. The stars are out shining upon our racers and our fans live watching here at the track. Deering is 2.5 seconds behind, and he's got a nice good cushion to 6th place there right now. He's obviously very comfortable with Simmons being right in behind, knowing that Simmons not going to do anything out of the ordinary there. We've got Mazda here in 6th place, just in the middle of no man's land right now. He's got Welshie 37 seconds in behind. I guess that's kind of the biggest complication he needs to worry about currently on the racetrack here. Johnny Waffles 27 seconds in behind Welshie, so Johnny was closing in. Now I think that the gap is starting to open back up between the GTR and the BMW drivers here. So Furious 2 is 26.5 seconds in behind Johnny Waffle. Roughly about where that gap has kind of stayed consistently between those two for the most part here this stint, I think. And then we have potential battle here for 9th position with Keplero in behind 1.6 seconds, and that might mean that Simon is also closing the gap. We'll go check that time gap here in a second, but we're just kind of trying to see if this is going to be a very quickly developing battle or if it's going to be a multiple lap close-in style deal here. But both drivers doing a great job trying to keep the gap open and one trying to close the gap up. So very interesting battle happening here, and Keplero is closing in on the power parts of the racetrack, which is not surprising to see. The McLaren definitely got a good boost with the last BOP update, but it's not quite there yet with say the Mercedes or a Corvette or a Supra or a BMW on acceleration, but it's definitely gotten an improvement on the top end speed, which is definitely going to make this car much more competitive in a lot of situations now. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot of McLarens back out on the racetracks again here, but right now it's between him and this Mercedes, and the Mercedes is closing up the gap. We don't get the good camera angle. All right. Well, we'll throw it on bonnet cam for this one here as Keplero starts to close in here on the McLaren in front of Furious 2, and right now the closest battle on track. Now we do have another one that we got to kind of keep our eye on up front there as well, but We're going to just poke our head in on this here for a minute and see if Caballero can make something happen here. This could be a good opportunity for this Mercedes to close up a little bit more space. He's in the slipstream here. He should be able to close in a little bit on that McLaren. He does a little tiny bit, but it seems to be going much deeper in on the brakes than that McLaren is as well. And look at the time that he gained coming into Lacombe right there. And can he hold that gap as we come out of the exit heading into Brussels? And I mean, a car length separating these two drivers here right now on the racetrack. That shadow is crazy. And we are nose to tail here now between these two drivers, and we're going to see an attempt. Nope, he's just going to show his nose there into Pujon, see if he can get a reaction out of the driver of the McLaren. Furious there in the McLaren, just holding strong, holding to his line, knowing that he probably shouldn't be sticking his nose in there anyways, most likely. So a little bit of an attempt on the outside there, just keeping the nose in clean air. I don't think he's really trying to necessarily get by in that situation, but having clean air in front of the nose of your race car allows the car to turn the way you expect it to turn and get a good exit. And that's what we're seeing right now from Caballero. It's not that he's necessarily trying to get the move done in that particular corner. He's just trying to keep clean air underneath the hood scoop of that race car so he can maximize the output of his race car to get the job done. And he's going to utilize this Mercedes where it is strong, and that is the straight line speed here. Read that play like a book. Job done, pass made. The bigger question is now, do we see a response from Furious? As we're coming in through the chicane here, looking over the wing of the Mercedes of Caballero GT, who just gained 9th place there. And again, the straight line speed of that Mercedes just a little bit better than that McLaren. You can see he just gains a little bit more there over Furious there. And that was a great pass right there from Caballero GT in the Mercedes and last minute racing. So great job there. Furious drops down a position, but still in the toe of that Mercedes, and that's definitely where he wants to try and stick here so we can try to re-engage that battle. But Mercedes showing that it's pretty strong here right now at this part of the stint anyways. Simon is 1 minute 14 in behind Furious here now, so just losing a little bit of time here now, but has opened up a little bit of clean air now back on the racetrack here, which should allow him to kind of settle back into his rhythm here again and not have to necessarily focus on the lead lap cars in front and how to deal with the dirty air of the lead lap cars in front either. So as they continue to track up the racetrack here now, Simon can start to settle back into what he had going on and start trying to put in those qualifying lap pace again. Pardon me, we had to sneeze there. HR James here in the Corvette as well in 12th place, minute and a half behind Simon right now, and has roughly a minute 20 seconds over, or a minute 35 seconds over JP. So no immediate pressure, minute 32 there. The live timing finally corrects itself. And Kaizen has about 3 minutes to JP himself here. So not a whole lot changing on the backside of the field right now. Everybody's maintaining pace with each other, not really able to close up the gap. Simmons the only one that was really been able to make a big gap close here so far, and Kaza on Slugsy as well. So in my opinion, I think those are the two biggest moving drivers here so far in hours 6 and 7. But I mean, we still got 25 minutes or so left on the docket here. I do believe I need to start paying attention to the Discord server here, because I do believe we are going to see our next commentator here in a few minutes' time as he starts to prepare for stint number 5 here. And we'll be able to get a nice transition for everybody on that one. Doing a quick check in the commentators chat there. Alright, so the ORT Lexus is doing ORT Lexus things, controlling the pace of the race. Minute 51 ahead of Kaza. That's staying pretty consistent right now. So Kaza, as I suspected, is on pace with the race leader. We suspected that for a while now, and now that he's ahead of Slugsy and we can see the proper timing to the race leader, that is exactly the case. He's pacing the race leaders right now. Unfortunately for Kaza, not any quicker, not really gaining on him, but also not losing any more time, which is important because, I mean, another sector and a half around the racetrack difference, and they're a lap down, so that makes a major difference right now for our second and third place teams. With, I mean, Neo just encroaching ever so slightly here. So as we talk about that, we've got Slugsy 12.9 seconds in behind Kaza. That means he's actually closing back in on Kaza just a small amount. Macho is 20 seconds in behind now, losing slight amount of time to Slugsy here as well. So Slugsy's back in, settled into his rhythm here, and just cruising some good quality, consistent laps around the racetrack right now. He's got 2 minutes and 4 seconds between him and ORT Lexus in the race lead, but that means he's only about a dozen seconds away from seeing the headlights of Neo at the same time, and that, again, not the position that the third place driver wants to be in this early in the race, is potentially going a lap down. So the remaining 23 and a half minutes of the stint for second and third place is very, very important here to hopefully turn it over to their teammates that can start to chip away at that race leader's gap that they've developed here over the last 7 hours now. All right, Macho in fourth place. We got Deering in fifth. 13 seconds is the gap between him and Macho. So it was very close there for a little bit, but Macho has now started to open the gap back up again. There's no concern right now for Deering from Mazda, even though I believe that might be Mazda in behind. No, that's not. That's Simmons still in behind there. Mazda's got about 2 minutes to Deering, so gaining time at some points and then losing time at other points, so kind of a hit and miss right there for Mazda on closing in on Deering, but Welshie is about 30 seconds in behind, so Welshie's, again, kind of stabilized in behind Mazda there, not really gaining anymore at this point either. We've got Johnny Waffle about 32 seconds in behind Welshie in the GTR here. It seems to me like the drivers are just kind of settled into the rhythm here right now, and they're not as concerned about what those gaps are right now, but more concerned about getting the car home in one piece to their teammates and see what they can do with it next. Everybody doesn't seem to overly worried about forcing that gap to close right now, as opposed to keeping the car in good condition, which is what you would expect to see from these teams at this point in the race. But we do have Keplero GT here, who has gained a position most recently here on the racetrack, so that puts him up in the 9th place, and he has since then opened up about a 5.5 second gap over the Furious 2 that he took that position away for a few laps ago. So 5.5 second gap is, of course, the difference between the two cars, and Simon now starting to close that gap back up over Furious 2 here as well. It was at a minute 14, back down to a minute 9. I wouldn't be surprised to see if Simon doesn't get this gap down to under a minute before the end of his stint here, before he hands it over to his teammate. That's just my prediction, just the way things have been going here so far in this stint. Again, he is just tucked in behind Deering in 4th place there right now as well. Sitting in behind a 4th place driver, just a safe distance in behind, kind of utilizing the outside edge of that slipstream when he can, and just keeping pace with that front runner. And I mean, if you're keeping pace with the front runners, then you should probably be gaining on the guys that you're trying to track down up ahead of you on the racetrack as well. So the 4th place driver's clearly been having a pretty good race here so far. It hasn't really put too many feet in the wrong direction. It makes sense just to try and sit in behind, but not too close, but close enough where you can still take advantage of some slipstream. Got JP here in 13th, still has that left signal light on. Here on the racetrack, the team radio has not radioed him to shut that off yet, apparently. And we've got Kaizen here in the 14th position. We're just going to sit with him here for a minute, just because we like to give all the drivers camera time. Obviously, the teams put a ton of work into these races themselves, and I believe that all the drivers should get a decent amount of camera time no matter where you are on the racetrack. The drivers might beg to differ. A driver that's not racing or having the best race in their mind might not want to see that all the time, but I strongly believe in giving the love to all the teams and all the racers on track. It's the way it should be. It's fair and square, and we wouldn't have great races like we have today without all the drivers on the racetrack. So bear with me if I'm flipping through too much. Just let me know. We'll try to focus in on more battles, but there's just not much happening right now. So it's just a lot of kind of chilling through the screen and keeping an eye on racers and watching gaps and just kind of monitoring what's going down, trying to predict what's going to happen over the next little while. But it's ORT just in control right now, just moving, chilling, doing their thing. But that minute 51 has stayed very constant from Kaza here over the last half a dozen laps here. So this race is far from over. Far from over, I believe. I think we're going to start seeing some alterations of pit strategies probably with some of the drivers. We may start seeing some softer compound tires come out more frequently in certain parts of the stints, depending on how the weather patterns are looking. I think things are going to get very interesting as this race progresses here today, that's for sure. 15-second gap between Slugsy and Kaza. Kaza just slowly but surely adding a little bit of time between him and Slugsy. Not a ton, but just a little bit. Got Macho, he's kind of just pacing Slugsy right now. He's not losing him, he's not gaining on him. And then that allows Deering, though, who's on a little bit of a good pace right now. He's actually closing in on Macho a little bit, but had a little bit of a tough lap last time around there, and probably cost him a little bit of time, so he was probably a little bit closer there for a little bit. And Simon, again, just doing what Simon does, just continue to try and just make as much distance as he can here before he hands the car back over. Alright, Mazda here in 6th place. When I seen how laggy Mazda was initially here at the beginning of the stint, I was highly concerned about how long into the stint Mazda was going to get, but doing good so far here. Doing good so far. Welshie here, 36-second gap in between himself and Johnny Waffle. Johnny Waffle's just losing a little bit of touch of pace with Welshie at the moment. Cablero's 22.4 seconds in behind Johnny Waffle. Caballero has built himself some confidence in the late part of the stint and in behind the wheel of that last-minute racing Mercedes, and he's really starting to put in some good solid lap times here right now, and he is making time up because of it. So locking in the latter part of this driver stint here is Caballero GT, and is paying dividends for him. He's opened up a 12-second gap over Furious 2, who we got a position from a little while back here, and moving forward here is the last minute Mercedes. Simon, a minute four. I said he's going to have this under a minute before the end of this stint. He's still got 12 laps to go yet before he's going to bring that car into pit lane. So maybe we'll see it a little bit sooner, and then we'll see how far he goes on these tires. He may opt to stop, but probably not what he wants to do with 12 laps remaining. But I don't know if he's going to get another 12 laps out of the tires that he's got on right now at the same time either. So we may have to see a pit stop there from Simon before the end of the stint, which is unfortunate. And JP here in 13th position, minute and a half in being. Oops, James. We missed James. I'm sorry, James. AHR Apex Hunter Racing, Apex Hunter Racing, I think it is, here in 12th position, and I mean right on the back door of JP here in 13th position. So actually trying to put JP a lap down, or a lap between himself and JP here right now. So we are on the 12th place driver who's chasing the 13th place driver and trying to put that driver a lap down to him. So this is to give himself basically a full lap gap between himself and 13th place driver JP. So JP is also a VR2 driver, so keeping in mind that he's in a different perspective than potentially James is. I don't know if James runs VR or not. He very well could. But with the headlights being on, I can guarantee you JP is aware that that Corvette is there, because I know for a fact in the VR2 the headlights are a bit of a sore spot for visual for the drivers that are in VR. And you can see he was aware there. He gave out the position coming into Lacombe there as he came around. So he does give the position up there to James, or the move over out of the way there for James. And that will put a lap between 12th and 13th place there officially as they continue around the racetrack there. And Kaizen, that actually benefited Kaizen a little bit there. The gap, I think, is closing slightly between JP and Kaizen as well. So good gains, good gains. All right, so it is Neo here in, again, the race lead. He's just controlling the pace of the race. Just very good, consistent laps, but he is starting to lose some pace here compared to the early race pace. Definitely down a little bit on that pace, which means Kaza is probably closing in. Now, I guess the bigger question is that due to lap traffic, or is that by design? That he's just letting up a little bit, not forcing the car any, not wearing the car out any extra, and just, again, managing that 1 minute 50-second gap right now. Gaza is lapping quicker than the race leader right now by a little bit, just showing based off of what we can see for lap times on the side of the screen. So much more consistent has Kaza been in comparison to Neo right now, and you know, maybe a little bit of fatigue, maybe just not quite locked in like he was as Neo, and it's not costing him a whole lot right now, but if it continues over the next 10 laps at this pace, it's going to start to cost him. You could cost him 5-10 seconds on that gap, and yeah, he's got a minute 50 gap. Ghost, I mean, what does that mean? Well, there's still I mean, there's still 16 hours of racing left. It could mean all the difference in the world, I suppose, at the end of the day, depending on how this race shapes up. So surprised to see him just losing pace as opposed to just maintaining that same consistency that they're so well known for. Slugsy 14 seconds in behind Kaza. I believe Slugsy starting to close back in a little bit. Macho is 11 seconds behind Slugsy. Much of the same thing here. He is closing in on Slugsy little bit by little bit. Deering seemed to have been closing up on Macho, but now seems to be losing a little pace to Macho. So it's a lot of gain a couple seconds, give a couple seconds back right now for the most part here. We got Madsta coming in to pit lane very late in the stint. He's not going to quite get all the way there. And we had that suspicion with the Renault there as well. So he's going to make that pit stop, and we'll see where he ends up there. But that's going to give Johnny, or Welshie, pardon me, a position there. And that's going to give him 6th place. So Welshie moves up the list there. And Welshie pit a little bit later than Mazda there. And from based off what I'm seeing, shouldn't have a reason to hit pit lane except to hand the car over to his teammate at this point. So that should be a position gain there for Welshie. And he's just in behind, I believe that's Simon right now in the Corvette here as well. So we'll probably see Simon give that position up, which he does heading into Lacombe right there at the end of the Kemmel Straight. And Simon is just going to continue tracking up the racetrack, trying to close that gap up to Furious 2. Mastick's coming out of pit lane here, and a little bit of a wide exit coming out there. Might just be the lag that we're seeing there. As he's coming out of pit lane. Now, again, remember Australian drivers, so it's unfortunate for our Australian drivers because our Australian racers are some of the quickest out there. But for some reason, it's so hard to get a good, stable connection with most lobby hosts outside of Australia for these guys. So it's tough. It's tough. It's really tough. These guys are very quick, good, efficient racers, and the internet is really kind of the enemy to their cause here for the most part, it seems like, from Australia. So I'm just happy to see that we're still on track and moving forward here. We've got Johnny Waffle here in 8th place, 13.2 seconds behind Mazda now. That gap is significantly different than it was, obviously, with Mazda having to make the pit stop. That is all gain from the drivers behind that don't need to stop again. Keplaro's going to gain big there as well. 26 seconds in behind Johnny. He's got 13 seconds over Furious, but Furious is in pit lane. He's got to top off here. I guess the bigger question is Simon going to come in now? Because if Simon doesn't need to come in, that is going to be a 40-second, 50-second gain on Furious 2. And all of a sudden, that 2-minute gap that started between these two is down to a couple handfuls of seconds. But I suspected we were going to see a pit stop coming here from Simon. Unfortunately, his racing slicks on the front end of that Corvette are just absolutely torn apart. And he's got no choice. He's got to come in, or he could potentially suffer a tire puncture on one of those front tires, and that could definitely undo all that hard work that Simon just spent doing here in this over this last 2 hours. So take the pit loss and salvage what's left there, and it is what it is. So it's just going to be a tire change and a release there for Simon. So it'll be the minimal amount of pit time needed to get in and out, but it's still a little bit of undoing all that hard work for him, but a long race. And if they got that kind of pace, I wouldn't keep that Corvette out of the middle part of this field before the end of the day here today, if not better. Neo back up to a minute 51 gap over Kaza. So again, ORT Lexus been leading for about the last 5-6 hours of the race now. Just managing that gap, not really letting it close, but not really forcing the growth of it either. There's no need to at a minute 51, unless you just want to be a bully, I guess, and try to pass the whole field at this point. Hello, you press the like button. I appreciate you, Isaac. Hope you're enjoying the broadcast, my man. We always appreciate it. Welcome in if you're new. And this is a 24-hour racing event here at Spa. So we're nearing the end of our stint here, but we'll be handing it over to the IRO broadcast team over at the International Racing Organization here on YouTube. That broadcast will go up, I believe, live on their channel here for the next stint. And then we will be back here in, we're going to call it about 2.5 hours time for a 6-hour run with everybody here. We're going to take on stint 6, 7, and 8. Here in the race, so we're going to take a good chunk of the middle part of the race here, and that means the viewers won't have to jump around for a little bit, so appreciate it. And we got about 20 minutes or so left here yet before we hand it over to Jaeger, who I need to check on Discord, I guess, because he may be in a chat. Alright, is that... Got nothing yet. Alright. We will try to keep our eye on Discord here now for the remaining of the stint, just to see when our next commentators jumps into the chat here. We'll have a quick little hello and nice little transition for everybody there. And all right, so Deering in 5th place, 31 seconds from Macho. Again, losing a little bit of time here to Macho. It was 22 or 23 seconds a few laps ago when we checked, so it lost about 5-6 seconds there since then. Whoops, Welshie here in 6th place. Not sure what the gap is to Deering yet. We'll have to wait for him to get past the live timing sector for it to change for us probably, but was, I believe, 30 seconds behind Deering at the point. And it's not, I'm not sure what it is. We're going to have to do the math. 510, 246. Oh, he's over a lap down. Okay. I'm thinking of a different combination here. We've got Welshie 21.6 seconds up the road from Mazda. I figured that gap would be bigger. Did Welshie pit? No, he did not. Interesting. So Mazda 20 seconds in behind Welshie. Johnny Waffles 25 seconds in behind Mazda. He was 13. So Mazda on those fresh racing tires has definitely found some good pace and has opened up a very quick jump on that gap between himself and the GTR in behind. So I guess an advantage to having the fresh tires late in the stint is that you should gain time on all your opponents that are on more wore down tires, but the extra pit time stop may not necessarily make up the time you're going to gain back in those 10 or 12 or 15 laps potentially. But we've seen that call made by teams here so far in this race today. Some alternative strategies, as I like to call it, or the plan B strategy based off the way the race stint has been going. And I mean, you just never know. That could have very well have changed that team's race moving forward for the next stint. Could have gained time, valuable time, as a matter of fact. And over 24 hours, every second counts, that's for sure. Alright, we're just trying to find to see if there's anything real close here. We do have Slugsy and Macho now 6 seconds apart from each other here. Not sure what happened there. But the gap is closing, and Macho is is he's taking names right now, and he's got a hit list, and next on that hit list, I think, is Slugsy. So we'll have to see if we continue to close up this gap. But even if he doesn't get close enough and get a position, he is still getting it set up, so when he hands that BMW over to his teammate, I mean, there is a very small gap there, and it can continue to be battle on in the next go around here with the new drivers. Maybe their driver is a little bit quicker than the driver up in front in this next stint. We won't know until we see who's placed in which car, obviously, when they hand them over. But that's the beautiful thing about endurance racing and driver swapping. You know, some drivers have more skill than other drivers in the cars they're driving, and that's going to affect the pace in that particular stint. Could affect potentially their position coming back into pit lane to hand the car back over to whomever is taking over after that. So there's so many different strategies and so many different ways to approach these long distance races. You can't really say one is right or wrong. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, whoever takes a checkered flag in first place probably had the most right strategy, I suppose, if for argument's sake. I think we're going to have to just kind of hang out there potentially with our fourth and third place drivers, because I think that's about where the closest gap is at the moment. After the pit stop, Simmons still only a minute 3 in behind Furious 2, so he didn't actually really cost him a whole lot of time there to Furious 2. If anything, he's still gaining time, so no work undone there from Simmons, which is fantastic, I'm sure, for him and the team. And they can continue to work off that momentum as they move into the next stint. JP here is about a minute 15 behind AHR James, and Kaizen is about 2 minutes and a bit behind JP. So again, they've been giving and taking on each other a little bit here. We see a flinch in the armor here from ORT, a half-second penalty there as we head up into Rouge à l'Arrêtion. And the leader is on lap 47 here, so we are getting close to that point where we're going to start seeing that driver swap transition here. And again, I'm just going to quickly check the Discord server, because our boy Jaeger should be in there. And there he is. All right. We're going to put that like that. And when Jaeger is ready to jump on in, he will just jump right on in, and you guys should be able to hear him there. So it is Neo here in the race lead. Again, minute 51 seconds over minute 53 now, pardon me, over ERA's Kaza here in the second position. He's got 13.8 seconds over Slugsy, so that gap is pretty minimal in consideration with some of the gaps we have on track here right now. But the real small one here is Macho over Slugsy. That gap was 6.7. Oh, there he is, Mr. Jaeger. How's it going, my man?
Mr. GT45 Gaming, your mic is muted.
Can you hear me now? There we go. There we go. Just got to hit the right hotkey, you know?
You're using hotkeys, oh my god.
Oh, we're fancy over here.
That professional, yeah.
Yeah. So, pretty quiet stint here for the most part here in the fourth stint. Really, drivers just trying to kind of use strategy and close up gaps, and a couple of good positional passes and battles here, but it's been a quiet couple of hours here for the most part as the race is starting to obviously settle in. But we're watching a good battle here right now between Slugsy and Macho in third and fourth place here, with only a couple seconds separating him here as we near the end of the stint. So our race leader's on lap 48 as of right now, so should see him coming into pit lane in about 5 minutes time. We got nothing yet, but it is definitely clouded over in the sky. We don't see those stars anymore, so without jumping out of the lobby at this point and going and looking at the weather radar, we can definitely speculate that potentially some weather is coming in, but the sky is not clear anymore. We can say that much for sure.
We might have a little bit of a wet start for the next lobby. We might have.
Yeah, we could have a slightly wet finish before the end of this one. You just never know. I mean, that would really throw an interesting program, a wrench in the program, to be honest, because these guys are so close to the end of their driver stints at this point. I highly doubt you're going to see any of these drivers opt to come into pit lane to take a wet tire for a lap or two. So it could make things interesting.
this is the theme, basically. No rain or heavy rain.
So that was an interesting moment there. I'm not sure if that was just I'm not sure what happened there. The race leader here was trying to navigate himself around Furious 2 in a McLaren, our 10th place driver there, and maybe missed his braking point there. That's kind of what it looked like, I guess. And completely blew around the blue flag car and went off track and almost had a little conversation with Barrier there at the edge of Pouan. So just a lapse of focus there from ORT's Neo, I believe, and boy, that almost cost them dearly. But again, he kept it together and kept it moving forward there, and thankfully didn't have a very late stint incident there for himself. But the very close moment there from our race leader Neo.
Can we state how dark it is, by the way?
It is very dark, very, very dark. We've got the exposure turned up for the viewers so they can see the cars a little bit better. So 12 seconds between Slugsy and Kaza. So, it was the other way around. Kaza spent the whole stint tracking Slugsy down, getting the position on him, opening the gap up. And now Slugsy is doing the exact opposite at the end of the stint. He's starting to close the gap up on Kaza. He doesn't have enough time to make anything happen out of that, but definitely closing the gap up there. And we need to we had a close battle here. We got Macho and Slugsy like separated by 1 second here now as well. So we're kind of trying to keep our eye on the driver's transition at the same time. We're trying to keep our eye on this battle for third place here. So bear with, chat. Bear with. They're still on the lead lap here as well, all 4 of these drivers. So that's a good thing. All right. But that also means that the race leader is only about 4 or 5 corners behind him, essentially here as well, currently at the time gap we see. So do they battle, or do they just stay real tight together, work together to the pit lane and deal with it in the beginning of the next stint? I guess that's the bigger question here between Macho and Deering. Macho's pretty much spent the whole stint trying to close the podium positions back down. He's finally gotten there. Now, what is he going to choose to do with it, I guess, is the bigger question. Do you force the battle this late in the stint, try to get into pit lane ahead of that car, or do you just come in tucked underneath his wing and leave it in the hands of your teammate? That's the bigger question here for sure right now, as they are nose to tail here coming into Paul Frere. And nope, I think he's going to try and get around so we can get into pit lane ahead, side by side here as we head up towards Blochemont. We can't see a thing because of glaring headlights here right now, but it is side by side action, I believe. Ooh, Slugsy had the inside line, but he shoots wide on the exit there. Macho gets a nice clean run through the corner, but he is still going to sit in behind Slugsy there as we enter the braking zone for the chicane, and Slugsy's going to have some dirty tires being so far out on the track there, and a penalty go with it. No, it's Macho with a penalty. What about Slugsy? Does Slugsy have one? Oh, both drivers pick up penalties there, so nothing lost or gained there. Okay, we're going to keep our eye on that in a second here, but we do have the race leader getting to the point where he is going to be coming in to get ready for driver swap. So ORT is bringing that lead Lexus into pit lane right now and should be coming your way shortly. Kaza is about 1:49 in behind here, so it'll be a little bit of time before we see the second place driver hit in the pit lane. So in the meantime, let's get back to that battle, shall we? All right, third and fourth place here, Slugsy and Macho, and I mean, they're separated by a go-kart width here at this point, and Macho's going to try and make something happen here. He's going to go on the outside heading into Lacombe's. If he can hold it, that'll give him the inside track. Nope, can't get it done. Good defense there by Slugsy, but another penalty tacked on to Slugsy there. And at the moment, I think it's a penalty advantage to Macho here as they come around. So heading into Brussels, it is still advantage to Slugsy. He's going to defend the apex there and not allow Macho most likely to get an inside position coming into the left-hander here. That he's going to take a semi-defensive line there, and that's exactly what I expected to see. So where's Kaza at? Kaza's just heading into campus here right now. Just keeping an eye here. And that 1 second penalty for Slugsy compared to the half-second penalty is just devastating for Slugsy. This is a juicy battle, right, leading into pit lane for driver swaps here. The penalties are going to make it not so fun for these drivers here. Paul Frere curve is where that penalty serving zone is, so those penalties will be served by these drivers very shortly. But in the meantime, we are going to have to jump to our second place driver here as he's getting ready to enter Blochemont and get his team ready to do that driver swap transition. So Kaza is about 15 seconds out from getting ready to hand his car over to the next teammate. I know I want to hit the button too, Chad. I know you want to see that battle. I just bear with. There we go. All right, let's go. Let's get to the battle. It is going to be Macho that gets ahead of Slugsy. Obviously, with the penalty being served there, he only had a half second. Slugsy had a full second. That's going to cost Slugsy almost 2 seconds on track, where it only cost Macho a second. And the gap currently between the two is 1.3 seconds as Macho and Slugsy both hit pit lane. All right, that was fun, wasn't it, Chad? Right to the end there. We love that.
Lovely. So we have Player Pro F1, stint 5 for ORT out on track, and we're waiting for the next drivers to do the same.
It will be...
Very soon, I think.
Yep, this should be, you betcha, they should just be about hitting their pit box. Now we got Race Asylum 2 Deering, the Lexus, going to be the next driver in. He's about 10 seconds out. And does he have a driver in tow? I believe not. So Deering is heading your way.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a full lap here now before you see your next driver, so you got a little bit of time there.
Alright, then just focus.
Ooh, we got a potential battle developing here for 8th place now as well between Johnny Waffle and Keplero GT. And, you know, we talk about big movers here in this stint. Definitely Simon, definitely Kaza. And we cannot discount Keplero GT out of that equation either for last minute racing. I mean, they have done some work in that Mercedes to continue to push the field here and closing the gap now on that GTR Johnny Waffle here as well as we start to prepare for these driver transitions. So this race is full of battles from start to finish here today. That's what we love to see. That's what we always hope to see. And I think we're in for a whole lot more of that yet before this 24 hours is over.
Streaming to something no one can actually see. It's not good.
Well, it's a good thing Jaeger has a little bit of time to get that all locked in there. Both of us do a double duty here today, so a little chaotic at a commentator's booth here this weekend.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing, by the way. Should see it. Hopefully here.
Is it on your channel or IRO?
No, it's on the IRO.
That's what I figured, yeah.
Something went wrong with the stream key. It's a different thing. It shows for me.
Interesting.
Now we have people in the chat, so thank God.
That means we're live.
Means we're actually live, yeah.
Alright, 3.2 seconds now between Welshie and Mazda here as well. Lots of little battles developing. You're gonna have a couple of immediate cars close together here as we get into stint number 5 here for sure. So Welshie is just entering the pit entry right now, and Mazda is 3 seconds behind him, also entering pit entry here. So 6th and 7th place are now in, and Johnny Waffle and Keplero are also only separated by 3 seconds, but about a minute out yet.
Some interesting development here. People out on mediums on a not really dry track, and people pitting early after one lap on intermediates, getting back onto the medium tires. It's crazy scenes happening already early in that stint. So the lead car still driving on intermediates, P2 as well as unsupported 77 Race Asylum. And then we have at Stick 7 for Sector 7 racing on mediums. I had a massive spin, collected some damage. Gecko went into the pits, went out on intermediates now, using probably mediums, or what's the call? No.
Well, that's That's a tough
Yeah,
call when
confused.
you're
Yeah.
a couple laps down from the race leader in a driver swap situation. You have to kind of try to determine whether or not that tire is even going to be needed at that point. You get out on the racetrack as well, right? So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made for these teams this race. It's very tough. Johnny Waffle and Caplero coming in 1.3 seconds between the two of them there, so there's going to be another two very close cars there. The GTR and Last Minute Racing Mercedes only separated by 1.3 as they enter pit lane. Furious 2 is about 30, well, just entering pit lane himself here.
Yeah, parts of the track are definitely now for mediums. Some of the parts still a bit too wet, and also like with the poor visibility, it's probably tough to stay on that very small racing line if you're on those mediums. But yeah, it definitely will be a challenge. But I'm pretty sure most of the drivers will be pitting now to get onto the medium tires or a slick tire compound. Not sure about what the go-to tire is in those conditions. Not sure how long the slots will last, but hey, we'll find out pretty soon. Hansa P2 into the pits now, thinking it is time to change. Yeah, someone asked, Mr. SPS racing now? Yeah.
And Simon just coming in here in the Corvette as well. Three drivers remaining. Hey, all 14 drivers made stint 4, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. That's what we love to see.
Mr. SPS on the mediums and for Last Minute Racing on intermediates. But he will be regretting that decision when he sees that track. It is basically below the first line now. Oh, that's an outlap, in-lap, outlap again situation for many of the drivers.
And it's tough. I mean, the tires are locked in at that point until the driver swap, and then you got to make that decision. Do I change my tires or do I go out with what we got? And some drivers maybe just a little button happy and accidentally pushing the X a little early, maybe.
And with the way the driver swaps happened, so they completed their in-lap where it was basically wet, and then they had to wait for 10-15 minutes, and they couldn't see the track evolution. So it's pretty much a guessing game for the drivers waiting for their teammates, and so that's what it makes a really tough call to do one lap, see what the conditions are actually like. Don't want to risk like being on the mediums and then spin the car, get damage. So, but now it's definitely mediums for all of the drivers.
And you should have a AHR Corvette popping out of pit lane here anytime now as well.
A Corvette, yeah, that's Beetlejuice, who
AHR.
flew over
Yep.
from Laguna Seca.
They must have the same travel agents we've got.
Crazy, yeah. Crazy stuff happening. So
That Concorde jet is working overtime today.
yeah, we have AHR on that, another Corvette out on track in P12. Here it is.
Yeah, them coming off a big race win there, or a big race finish there for just a few hours ago as well, like you said, in California. So straight on the plane and no jet lag time for that driver. Back in the car.
Different car, different team.
Completely different track.
Yeah. Whatever.
That's racing,
If it has
baby.
a wheel and 4 tires, I'll race it.
That's right.
I don't care. So the leader now into the pits, finally. Still like a big gap, so basically a lap ahead. P2 Hansa versus Simon will get back onto that lead lap with Sander right behind, still running with that damaged front bumper.
Should have a Race Asylum BMW heading in here. And one driver left.
On that.
He just come in, so it'll be about 30 seconds out before the swap, I would imagine. And we just got the LRC McLaren left here. He's about 1 lap out.
Wait for the Race Asylum BMW. That triple line and also the leader still in the pits now. Back out, pit exit, and for surely it will be a slick tire. It is medium, so where is that?
The gap was a 1 minute 53 seconds between first and second place when the driver swap started, just so you have something to go off of there.
We'll wait for that time to update. So it was 2 minutes 28 before the pit stop. That was P2 pitting for mediums, 2 laps before that. So we see that gap come down to 102 minutes. And we should see Race Asylum, BMW out on track on mediums, that is. So it's just one more car. The LRC, McLaren missing.
And he's just getting into Puan right now.
Still need to wait for that. Right, so we then check on that race situation. ORT with Player Pro F1 leading. Hansa for Race Asylum. 77 in P2. Sander for Sector 7 Racing in that. What's that car? I just see. It is a BMW. I think it's a 13 car. Yeah. In P3, Gecko in the 44. Corvette currently in P4. Honor for Race Asylum 218 Lexus right behind. In P5, then 1 minute 48 to Ritzy. That is Sector 7, the Renault RS01. Oscar for MRL in that BMW. In P7.
All right.
Mad Des,
LRC
driver.
is coming your way.
It's not too dark. It is dark. It is night. It has to be dark. you have to get the immersion, like we are doing this like in real time. So it is dark. It has to be dark.
Absolutely.
Way.
All right,
Yeah, GT,
LRC has just officially entered pit lane. You should have them 10-15 seconds.
So Mr. SPS then in P9, 12 seconds behind Des in P8, Richie 1 minute 14. After that, yeah, outlap, inlet, outlap. Now on the mediums, Beetlejuice in P11 went out on mediums, gained on Richie. Jacko for AHR in P12. Toby in P13 for Asylum, and Ricardas for LRC now coming out of the pits.
All right, we're going to leave the chat
Racing.
with Jaeger in the capable hands over at the IRO YouTube channel, and we'll be back in a couple hours' time. We'll see you all later. Jaeger, good luck. Have fun. We'll be back in about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so just want to say thank you for tuning in over the last 2 hours here from the International Racing Organization. We are now 8 hours into this race, and the broadcaster Jaeger is on live at the International Racing Organization YouTube channel. We'll be back in 2 hours' time to cover stints 6, 7, and 8. So we'll have 6 straight hours of racing action here from GT45 Gaming in 2 hours' time. Appreciate everybody coming in. Thank you from the International Racing Organization again to the viewers for bouncing around today. We really love you and appreciate you for it. And it's just a tough weekend here from the streamers' end of things, and things that are the way are working. But thank you from myself, GT45 Gaming, and International Racing Organization.